Bless America?
I could probably find
Lightly.
it. Yeah.
Might be one of the books. I don't know if it's in those books. I think we sing it enough, and I just didn't. We decided last minute.
It's not one that I play all the time, or I could try and learn it.
We can do it a cappella. You just get us an F if you want to.
Check this one out. If it was your standard, hymn you sing every other Sunday, I could get you through it, but.
Well, I thought about asking Pastor. September 11th. Well, good evening. Good to see you tonight. Come on in and find your places. We're glad to have you. Did you think you came into the wrong church today? You walked in with the carpet, and I told Pastor we have that new car, new carpet, new church smell in here. So between the projectors and the carpet, this church is getting too fancy for me. I think we're going to have to leave and go somewhere else. But no, I'll have one fan back there. Thank you, Blake. Yeah, we're looking. Just enjoy the smell here. We were worried about the smell a little bit, but we're working on it, obviously, and it's coming together quick. So that's exciting to see, but we are glad to see you tonight. Let's stand. We'll start the service singing, "Oh, How I Love Jesus." There is a name I love to hear. I love to sing its words. Sing it. There is a name I love to hear, I love to sing its worth. It sounds like music in my ear, the sweetest name on earth. Oh, how I love Jesus. Oh, how I love Jesus. Oh, how I love Jesus, because he first loved me. It tells of one whose loving heart can feel my deepest woe, who in each sorrow bears a part that none can bear below. Oh, how I love Jesus. Oh, how I love Jesus. Oh, how I love Jesus, because he first loved me. We love him because he first loved us. Sing this one, "The Lily of the Valley." I've found a friend in Jesus. I have found a friend in Jesus. He's everything to me. He's the fairest of 10,000 to my soul. The lily of the valley, in him alone I see all I need to cleanse and make me fully whole. In sorrow he's my comfort, in trouble he's my stay. He tells me every care on him to roll. He's the lily of the valley, the bright and morning star. He's the fairest of 10,000 to my soul. Sing it on the last. He will never, he will never, never leave me, nor yet forsake me here, while I live by faith and do his blessed will. A wall of fire about me, I've nothing now to fear. With his manna he my hungry soul shall fill. And sweeping up to glory to see his blessed face, where rivers of delight shall ever roll. He's the lily of the valley, the bright and morning star. He's the fairest of 10,000 to my soul. Sing this new one we've been doing. The Father looks on me and sees not what I was. The Father looks on me and sees not what I was or am. He views the righteousness of Christ and not my cursed sin. The Father looks and pities me. He knows that I am dust. He treats me not as I soul, yet claimed me as his own. The Father looks for me with hope, for me his wayward son. I stand afar, detained by shame. He cries for joy and runs. The Father looks on me and smiles, for it is Christ he sees. This is my own beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. I love that new song. It sounds great. Let's sing this one. It's September 11th. We were talking a little bit about it today, and we're not having a patriotic service, but because of that day, if you remember, even all the congressmen and women on the Capitol steps singing God Bless America, I thought about that, and we thought maybe it'd be fitting to sing that one today. We're going to sing that, maybe a cappella. We didn't get the music out. We don't have the words up, but we're going to sing it anyway. God Bless America. Sing it together. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Amen. You may be seated. Great singing. And we remember that day. We could say a lot about that and have testimonies about that. I think Pastor may even do that a little bit later. But since it's on the day of September 11th, we're having service, I thought that would be fitting to at least sing God Bless America. And thank God for our country. And let's be in prayer for it as election season is underway, if you haven't heard. If you haven't seen or heard lately. Here, a few quick things. We'll continue on with the service. Men and Boys Camp Out this Friday. You can still register and pay on the app. For those that don't want to do that, we've not made that a big thing. You can come and pay cash like you normally do if you'd rather do it that way. But you can also pay on the app if you want to get it done. And we can get a count there. This Sunday is Back to Church Sunday as well. It's just National Back to Church Sunday. So invite folks. This is just a time. We're not doing a big service or anything special necessarily, but it's a good time if you want to invite folks that might be getting back to it. Fall is kind of that kickoff. We were talking about it in the staff meeting this week. September and August, back to school is kind of like the new year almost already. A lot of people make New Year's resolutions in this back to school time, kind of like January 1st. So if you know of anybody that doesn't go to church or would be interested, this could be a good service to invite them. Hey, come to me with Back to Church Sunday. And if somebody's fading out, get them back in for this Sunday. So don't forget about that. And then ladies' tea on Monday at 6:30 as well. There's things on the app. You can sign up to bring food. And ladies, I think you have all that information. If you don't see it, we're trying to put everything on that app. That way you just know where to go. Of course, you can always call us, text us if you have any questions. But we're trying to put that information there. That way you know where to go, where to sign up. And so don't miss that. If you also saw as you walked in, we've been adding to the Love Week section out in the lobby. Love Week is coming up in just a few weeks. We're taking donations, and there's signs for each bucket out there, each bin. We take several donations throughout that week, but we need them now. And then there's a sign-up table. Again, there's things on the app. We're going to be adding to that app as it gets closer, sign-ups and things. And hopefully by Sunday, we'll have a list of everything we're doing for Love Week, Sunday through Saturday, what all events we're adding, who's running them, what class is running them. A real quick point of just making sure you know this. Classes are taking over different events. For instance, we were just talking to Jim Thompson. Their class is running the donuts, and that's like the best one. You get to, I told him I take a tax out of those donuts. I take a toll tax on the way when I pass out donuts. But we pass out donuts to area businesses here and just give a dozen donuts to folks for free. And so his class is running that. His connection or his growth group is running that. You don't have to be specifically in that group to run it or to be a part. So if you can't make your class's day, If you're in a connection group or a growth group, but your class is doing something maybe on Thursday that you can't be a part of, you can still sign up for someone else's. We're just running those things administratively wise through the classes. So I wanted to make a quick note about that. But sign up for that. Let's be involved in that. This is a fun time where our church just gets out in the community and just offers gifts and just fun things for the community to let us know we love you, we appreciate you. Let them know we love and appreciate you and that we're here. First Baptist is here, and we just want to be a blessing. So that's a fun week. Be in prayer about what you can do there, all right? We usually have missions moment. I think this week we have some guys that went on a trip. They're going to give testimony. And so is Justice coming first? Is Justice here or Tanner? Is there a video? I don't know what's going on here. We have a video, and then those guys will come. All right, we'll take the video.
So while we were there, we were able to see them work on their auditorium and just really get a lot done, from dirt to laying concrete to getting the platform done. It was just awesome to see, and then see the church family really pull together and get things done. It was just really a blessing to be a part of. Phase one was the wardrobe, and so this is where we were able to get in the shop, get it set up, get some tools bought for them so they could start actually working, or we could start actually working in the shop. And so we had one guy to be able to train. We were supposed to have around 10, but that fell through because they had a lot of work to do at the church. And so we were able to have one guy help us out. And so we went to the lumber yard. We had to do a lot of searching the first week, finding materials, finding all the products and stuff that we need to build the wardrobe. So this is one of the craziest things I've ever seen, and probably why they have so many accidents in Mexico, is you have to get in the right lane in many parts of the street and take a left. It's super weird, super crazy, but man, they do it. So the shop that we work in is actually owned by Juan, and he's a carpenter there in Mexico. And he was gracious enough to allow us to use his shop free of charge. He even let us use some of his tools and equipment as well. But he goes to the church often as well, and so that was a really big blessing and something that they will be able to use until they get their own space. So Tanner showed up on the next Monday and really helped us accomplish the task of getting this wardrobe finished up. He was a huge blessing in being a part of this trip. And one thing we wanted to make sure that Isaac understood was just the quality aspect of building, not only using the tools, but also understanding how to take time and be patient and build something that is of a higher excellence and a higher standard, because we really want to glorify God in everything we do. So we were teaching him that, but really it's amazing how fast and how quick he learned. And through prayer, and I think just him being willing to learn, he was able to grasp a hold of the concept of fine furniture and did a really amazing job. So as you watch this, you can kind of watch him build and just enjoy it as he goes.
Here it is.
Open
The
the elevator.
wardrobe. You can see here,
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
brand new.
Good job, good job. All right, you're done. So phase 2 was the master bedroom, and this was a very crazy project just because the lumber was so heavy, and it was a little sketchy getting up to the top of the roof, as you'll see here in a minute. But we got it up there and we got stuff in. We got the ledger up and we got around 6 joists done, and so that really helped out a lot for them to have something to copy all the way down the room, so they'll be able to get it done here in the near future.
Hello everyone, I'm Tanner. If you don't know me, Tanner Horn. So like Justice said, I came down there for the second week while he was there. He was there for 2 weeks, I was there for 1 week. I came down from Monday to Monday. He luckily got to know the area a little bit and work out some of the kinks that really helped us out. I first heard of Eddie Wilson a year ago here, maybe it was a little bit more than that. Heard about Impact Others, Project Impact Others, where the 4 pillars are they like to find clothing and feeding for underprivileged children, and housing for orphans, creating clean water projects, and building sustainable businesses, which I can really get behind because it doesn't really create like a welfare state where they're always just asking for money. It kind of helps them build a business so they can sustain their own ministry. So this was a great option. I was really happy to help out. Some of the challenges we ran into that I don't think we really expected was we couldn't really find the parts and pieces that we wanted to use for some of the project. Sometimes money wasn't available. So we just kind of scrounged and got what we needed and begged kind of a little bit too. It seemed like every time there was a wall put up, we just kind of prayed about it, asked God, what do we do? Provide us a way. He provided us a way the whole time. It was really amazing. I mean, the wardrobe we made was beautiful. It'll take a little bit of work for them to get to that level. Justice is really skilled in that area. So, but we proved that you can do it with those tools and with a little bit of practice. It's definitely obtainable for them, and they can kind of reach out to the higher end market for that to hopefully draw in, because they already have a business for sewing and also a t-shirt company. So they have a little bit in income coming in. And then through Impact Others, I think they accept donations, which is how they're building that large sanctuary. So it's really neat to see. Some of the goals I had for the trip was I just wanted to be a blessing to the ministry. I wanted to work hard, train, and also grow closer to God through serving. And I feel like I really did do that. Justice was a great partner. You know, every time I got frustrated, he's like, okay, well, let's just pray about it. And that's really all you can do sometimes when times are uncertain. We didn't have a ride, so the guy in the video, his name was Isaac. He spoke really well English, so he was awesome to have around. The bus they would pick us up in, I think it ran off like fumes and faith, because literally the positive terminal on the battery was attached with just copper wire twisted. And then the relays were held in by zip ties and plywood. It broke a few times while we were there, once on Justice, I believe. But yeah, so one of the things I really noticed about that community and that ministry is that they have really serving hearts. They are really in it for soul winning. They spend a lot of hours every week out just grinding. They came back sweaty after, 8 hours of just soul winning. And they would drive hours to go meet and try to touch people's lives. So it was really fun to see. Another thing that I noticed was they constantly live in chaos. And I mean, we think we have chaos here with young kids and our families, but they live in a chaotic time and they have so much joy. And that's something I kind of want to bring into my life, is like, even though things are tough, like I can still have joy and trust God all throughout it. So that was one of my main takeaways from that. And just in every struggle, God provided, and we were able to move forward. I'm thankful for the church and the support that we got. I'm thankful for Justice, thankful for God mostly. And honestly, like the whole time on the trip, I just kept thinking, just be still and know that I am God. it's not my desire and what I want out of the mission. It's what God is going to show me. So that was my biggest takeaway. It was a good trip. I'm really looking forward to going somewhere else or even going back. One of the things the pastor did say is they don't struggle for a workforce. They have plenty of people that want to work there. It's the knowledge. They don't have subject matter experts in a lot of the places where they want to grow. So I feel like we can be a big blessing in that if we have a skill that we can bring down there to hopefully train them and they can continue to do what they build their mission up. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, first off, I just want to say thank you all for your support and prayer. That's one of the biggest things for us to be able to do trips like this and continue to do them. And so, like he was saying, there was a lot of chaos, not only just down there in general, but like even with the plans that we had set to go down, we wanted to have things, materials and stuff in place. And just there was some issues with like they had a lot of more things to get done with the church that came up, and they had like a time when they had to meet. So just a lot of craziness. But through all that, God did provide, and He provided us with the materials and to be able to get, and the funds to be able to get like all the stuff we needed for those projects. And so really the idea behind Craftsman Worldwide came, a couple of years ago, just trying to use what I have, what God has given me for His glory. And one of the passages I love is in Exodus 31, we just saw up there about God filling craftsmen with the Spirit to be able to simply just build a tabernacle, which is simply to glorify Him. And I thought that was just an amazing idea and something that I wanted to work on in my life to make sure that whatever I do, it's God first and to glorify Him, and that I use what He's given me in the first place for His glory. And so this is just an awesome opportunity to be able to do that. And it's such a big need. The reason why we went to Mexico in the first place was because of Eddie Wilson. He was just talking about how there's a need because he travels everywhere. And he said there was a need just for carpentry in general all over the world, and there's a lot of people needing it. And so doing the business side of things is something that we did this trip. We didn't do it last trip, but we did this trip. And I just think it's an amazing opportunity for the church and to be able to provide jobs for, if they have a college students, people in the church, also support the church and do their own projects as well. So it's a really great opportunity to be able to do, and we want to continue to make trips and do those things so that way these churches can have different avenues of income and also be able to provide jobs to people that need them and families that need them. So, but it was a ton of fun. It was a great opportunity. A lot of chaotic stuff going on, but through it all, God provided, and I think that was just the greatest part about all of it. It was just taking some time just to think through the problem solving and just to enjoy serving God, really, because sometimes we can get so distracted by everything that's going on. But we just want to try to enjoy what we were doing down there, and so almost got all the projects done, almost, but we got like part of the other one done, and so we'll be able to finish it now. But and then as far as like the future for what we're trying to do with the ministry is just I feel God has been continuing to bless it and giving me more of a heart for it and a desire to want to do it in more places. And so we're going to continue to try to find missionaries that want to do more as far as the business side of things and also get projects done over where they're at. And so we'll continue to seek. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of people that need stuff done. It's just timing and how it's going to work with them. So continue to pray for us, and if you are wanting to support as well, that's great, but definitely prayer is the biggest thing for us. So if you guys can pray that God guides and directs and gives them more opportunity, that'd be awesome. So thank you.
All right, good deal. Tabor is not coming up, are you, Tabor? Where's Tabor at? I don't see him, so he usually comes up about now, but I'll just come up myself. Well, speaking of missionaries, we have our missionary Brother Wilder, and we sent, because you were able to, some of you joined in with that, we sent about $7,600 to Guatemala to help to buy an apartment building, a fourplex apartment building that had 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms in each of the units there. So they still need about $32,000 for the down payment, and so they did ask if we would pray about that as well. So before we start our Bible study, let's go ahead and go to prayer, and we'll do that right now. Father and God, thank you for your love for us and for, again, just the heart for people to see your work go forward around the world, whether it's seeing people saved, most specifically, but then also other logistical things that have to happen. Money needs to be raised, and we know that you are the one that owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, and you own the hills underneath the cattle, and so we know that you can provide, but many times you use us to be able to be a conduit for that money. And so help us to be faithful in our giving to missions and our support for missions. And bless Justice and Tanner and others that are working to do their projects, but then also the missionaries that we currently support. I pray that you'd meet that $32,000 that the Wilders need to be able to get the down payment for that building. I believe it could be used for your glory, and I believe that you're in that. And so we do ask for your blessing upon that family and that ministry as well. Thank you again for your love for us. And as we are gathered tonight, the children are doing their thing. Of course, teenagers doing their thing. Help us to open our hearts to what you'd have for us here in this Bible study as we conclude the book of Joshua. And I pray that you bless our time. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. We're going to be in Joshua in just a moment here. If you want to go ahead and go to Joshua 22. Today is the 23rd anniversary of 9/11. And some of you were not even old enough. You weren't even born at that point. And then others, of course, you remember exactly where you were at when you heard about the first airplane hitting. Was Eastern time. Let me just go ahead and give the timeline of everything. I think you probably know it, but 8:46, the North Tower was struck. 9:03, the South Tower was struck. 9:37, the Pentagon was struck. South Tower collapsed at 9:59, and then Flight 93 crashed in Pennsylvania. We're so appreciative for those people that actually just said, let's roll, Mr. Beamer and others that just decided to take over the plane from those terrorists. And then, of course, the North Tower collapsed, and so it just was a disaster, really. About 3,000 souls were lost that day. And so it's a day we said we'd never forget. And one thing that I talked about in my Bible class today was, the best way to honor those that lost their life in 9/11 is to act like we did on 9/12. 9/12, all of a sudden, America was patriotic again. It hadn't happened, in my lifetime. We hadn't seen that as much with the Vietnam War and various things that caused kind of a lack of excitement about the country. But it did bring back patriotism, and it brought back actually people to church. People were looking for answers. And what always baffles me about, how things work, and that is these were Muslims. These are Muslim terrorists that would really be following their book called the Quran that says to kill, murder infidels, which would be Americans. And so let's keep this in mind. It's really crazy. It was just a few short years later that we actually voted to be a president, Obama Hussein, Barack Hussein Obama had, of course, his Muslim ties as well. And so I think there's a lot of shenanigans going on in the world, and I'll just let it be at that, I guess, for that. But tell me where you were at when it happened. What was your first reaction? What did you do when you saw the activity? Were you able to watch it? What happened? Give me an idea where you were at, Mary Ellen? You were flying. You were in a plane, so they said, get these planes out of the air, right? Right. Did they do emergency? They got you. They didn't get you to where you were supposed to go, or did they? Yeah. You got stuck in St. Louis then. And then probably to get a rental car at that point, it was pretty hard to do. Yeah, people get stuck all over this kind of stuff, this shut down the nation. It really did. Okay, somebody else. James? Okay. What was the spirit there? Yeah. Yes. Alert. High alert at that point. Absolutely. Heather? Absolutely. Yeah. Right. chaos for a while there, absolute chaos, absolutely. Nobody knew really what was going on for sure. All right, about 2 or 3 more real quick here on this. Anybody else want to share where you were and what your take on was it? All right, Dale.
I was at work and Kim called. I had a 7:30 sales meeting and just got done at 8. First plane had already hit. She called and said that the tower that the plane had hit, the gentleman that she worked for, his brother-in-law was in the top.
In the tower, yeah, yeah.
She said to pray for him because.
Did he ever make it or did he pass? He did pass. My nephew was supposed to be in the towers that day for a business meeting and it got canceled. And I just forever am so thankful. I mean, that some people weren't there that were planning on being there. It's a crazy thing.
The other memory I have is in the afternoon and I happened to be over in Council Bluffs and Air Force One.
Oh, absolutely. I was coming down Highway 75. He's talking about Air Force One and we were looking in the sky. It's like, why is that plane going right towards off it?
All the planes were.
Absolutely.
It was leaving and it had 2
Oh.
F-16s on both wings.
Right.
When I saw that.
Yeah, then it's probably okay. Yeah.
You don't see it escorted.
And I was driving on Highway 75 and came and I saw it coming from the west and it was coming in and I had KFEB on my radio station and they said actually President Bush is now coming to Offutt Air Force Base, and so that's what it was. That was kind of a little scary. Like, what are they going to bomb Stratcom? I mean, they're going to hit Stratcom next. What it looked like, you know, kind of felt like. 1 or 2 more. Anybody else want to share on this side, real quick? Last call. All right, go ahead. Oh, I've got 3. Or I've got to do this faster. Go ahead, Daniel. Oh. No. Now we know something's serious here. Something's wrong here. It wasn't just some flight that got lost. Right. Yeah, yeah, terrible. Something big is going on. Tyler?
I was in a classroom. It was 2nd grade for me.
2nd grade.
TV turned on, and at first I was just confused. I thought it was some sort of accident, and then everybody was talking, and I went from confused to believing people saying that it was World War III to thinking that every building I walked into would.
You don't know what's going to happen. Right, right. Bob?
Yes, I was starting to work in Marriott, and I was working day shift at the time, and I just walked into the break room that had a big TV had it on, and my question is this for real, or is this a movie, or what's going on? But for the next 7 months, it was total chaos in the hotel suite.
What's that? I missed the last part.
Yeah, the hotel business was in chaos.
Oh, the hotel business was in chaos because of it. Yes. Right. Yeah, it just shut down things for a while. 1 or 2 over here if you want to. Anybody else? All right, go ahead. Yes, Mike?
So I was helping Melissa move. She lived in Colorado Springs. We were moving her to Castle Rock, and her brother called and said, "Hey, are you guys watching TV?" I said, "No, we just packed the TV," and he said, "We'll get it back out."
Yeah, yeah.
And so her parents were. Her dad was a truck driver. He was actually on the bridge to go to Long Island
Oh, boy.
when it hit, and they got stuck in traffic.
Oh, it was just, I mean, to see the bridges and the chaos to try to get people out of that area as well, it was just terrible. Maybe 1 more over here if you had. Anybody else want to share? All right, go ahead, Heather.
We were in Chicago for a work meeting, and Kate was 6 months old. I had him with me, and we were right next to what was the Sears Tower.
Yeah, oh, boy.
And there were rumors everywhere. They thought that was next.
Could be another target. It's one of the big buildings.
Evacuating everything, trying to leave, and Rich wouldn't leave because he was convinced his meeting would still go on for work.
Oh,
So the hotel staff had left. I mean, everybody was gone.
yeah.
And we were one of the last people out.
Yeah, wow, yeah. Well, we got to go on here. I heard it on the radio when I went over to the school, actually, and I grabbed the television and put it in room 201 over there, and I grabbed the high school students. I said, we need to come. Something's really big happening in this world right now. This will be a moment you want to notice and see what's going on. So we sat there for hours and actually watched, you know, the coverage of it, and obviously it was a time of confusion to some degree, and, you know, it's a very sad moment in history. And I want to remind us again, there is definite good and evil in the world, and people with different ideologies as well. They're blinded about what truth is, and who their real enemy is. And so there's just a lot of problems with this world, and I don't really like the thought that we're allowing so many people on our southern border that are on the terror watch list and so forth, just coming into America and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't give you as cozy of a feeling with all that stuff, but it is what it is at this point. So we need to pray for, again, America, and pray for our leadership, our country, and just the world. Obviously, this world's a mess. I just heard of a terrible loss of life just a few hours ago, and a friend, and a terrible life, terrible situation. And I just, like I said to his relative, I said, I'm just ready for the rapture. I really am. I'm just ready for the rapture. This world's not my home. Joshua chapter 22, I won't read all of it. This is just simply a review from last week. But there's kind of the reminder to, make sure that you stay on the right track and keep going forward. Verses 1 through 7, the 2.5 tribes went back over to the east side of the Jordan River. Maybe you go ahead and put that map up there, and just to remind you, I probably won't read this right this moment here, so much of it, but if you recall, the 2.5 tribes of Israel stayed on the east side of the river. They did have to go over and help to fight the battle, and then now that most of the land had been somewhat divided up and also kind of mostly conquered, they still had work to do, but then they went over back to the east side to be able to raise their cattle and so forth. They felt that was good land for grazing. And by the way, that is all part of the promised land. In fact, from the river Euphrates until the Nile River should be the boundary that actually Israel should occupy and have, which again would include a lot of Syria and Iraq and other parts of this world now as well. And of course, this is always interesting to me, that little Gaza Strip right there. That's always such an interesting spot in the world. Still has issues in that part of the world. But the thing I want to emphasize, I won't read the passages because it is just review from last week, but remember what happened when the 2.5 tribes went over on the other side. They built an altar. They called it Ed, and we said it was Ed's fault, all right? And so they built this altar to remind their kids about what God had done to give victory to get into the land. They weren't building that altar to make another place to sacrifice. People like when the kingdom split later on, if you recall, Jeroboam the son of Nebat took the northern 10 tribes, and he did actually make a new altar up north. And he actually made 2 places up north that they could actually do their sacrifice there. He said, because if you go back down to the real church, your hearts are going to be turned back to God. So he made some false altars up there, but that's not the case with these 2.5 tribes. They were just doing it to remind their kids about what God had done. Well, the 9.5 tribes that were on the east side of Jordan, west side of Jordan, I guess, say, west side of Jordan, then got upset with them, and they actually went to prepare for war against their own people. And the concept we were talking about last week was just simply this. Somebody jumped to a conclusion because of hearsay. There was a misunderstanding, absolutely a misunderstanding, and I'm glad that they did send a guy named Phineas, a son of Eleazar the priest, and he actually communicated then with the 2.5 tribes and got things so that they did not go to battle. And I wanted to mention again just some of the things. Hearsay can happen in politics, which again, I cannot stand lies. Nobody should enjoy that somebody is lying. I don't care who they are. But, Isaiah says truth has fallen in the street and equity can't get through, justice can't get through, you can't get fairness through because truth falls in the street. And we're at a point in America where a lie is a very present help in time of need. It's not sin in some people's eyes. And I think that's very, very sad. And so, words out of context, they take phrases out of context, and they try and, like the debate last night, I think that was happening quite often as well, taking things out of context and so forth. But so there's a lot of hearsay, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. And be careful what and how you perceive other people's situations and their motives, because we don't always know people's motives. But just a reminder that God is the only one that completely understands you. You're going to get misunderstood in life, just like the 2.5 tribes got misunderstood. But God is the only one that completely understands you, and take rest in that He is ultimately in charge and He knows you and your heart and your motives. People tend to judge you by how they think, and certainly maybe these people thought that they were trying to do something wrong. Look at the track record before you pass judgment on people. Sometimes be a little slow and careful in passing judgment on somebody because look at their track record. And honestly, a person's track record probably means a lot more than what they're saying at the moment, because again, watch their track record. And these people had a track record of going over, helping them to win the battle over there on the west side. And then they went back just like Moses and them had all set up before. It was all fine. And so they should have looked at that track record before they decided to grab a bunch of people and start to think about going to war. And then stay out of other people's unmerited battles. Sometimes various people will have battles, and many times it's not necessary for you to get involved in other people's battles. And then the last thing I'll say is if you get misunderstood, don't let it stop you from doing good again, because you might try and do right, try and do good, and then sometimes you get misunderstood. Don't let that stop you. Otherwise, that'll be Satan's tool that he'll always try and stop the believer from accomplishing what they're supposed to accomplish. Anyway, so I guess that's all I really wanted to say about this. Verse 27, they said that it may be a witness between us and you to our generations after us, that we might do the service of the Lord before him with our burnt offerings, with our sacrifices and our peace offerings, and that your children may not say to our children in the time to come, you have no part in the Lord. He said we wanted to make sure that we were a part of this. And so then it pleased the people, and they got things right, and they went on, and that was all fine. Chapter 23, Joshua is now near the end of his life. And he says, it came to pass a long time after the Lord had given rest unto Israel, in verse 1, that all their enemies round about, that Joshua waxed old and stricken in age. And Joshua called for all Israel, and for the elders, and for their heads, and for their judges, for their officers, and said unto them, I am old and stricken in age, and ye have seen all that the Lord your God hath done unto all these nations because of you, for the Lord your God is he that hath fought for you. And let's keep in mind, if you're a saved, born-again believer, you have the same God as the God of Israel. You have God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and he is the creator, and he certainly wants to fight battles for us as well. They divided up the land. He said, behold, I have divided unto you, verse 4, by lot these nations that remain to be an inheritance for your tribes from Jordan, with all the nations that I have cut off, even unto the great sea westward. And the Lord your God, he shall expel them from before you, and drive them from out of your sight, and ye shall possess their land as the Lord your God hath promised unto you. This was promised to Abraham. There was that 400-year gap, and in fact, when they came back, God said, I'm going to get the Amorites. Genesis 15 describes how the Amorites had 400 years to get right with God. They didn't get right with God, and now they were to come back and conquer the land. Verse 6, same thing as he had said earlier in chapter 1, be ye therefore very courageous, to keep and to do all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, that ye turn not aside from therefrom to the right hand or to the left, that ye come not among these nations, that these that remain among you, neither make mention of the name of their gods, nor cause to swear by them, neither serve them, nor bow yourselves unto them, but cleave unto the Lord your God, as ye have done unto this day. For the Lord hath driven out from before you great nations and strong, and as for you, no man hath been able to stand before you unto this day. One man of you shall chase 1,000, for the Lord your God, he it is that fighteth for you, as he hath promised you. Take good heed, therefore, unto yourselves, that ye love the Lord your God. He says, otherwise, verse 12, else if ye go back in any wise to go back, and cleave unto the remnant of those nations, even these that remain among you, and shall make marriages with them, and go in unto them, and they to you, know for a certainty that the Lord your God will no more drive out any of these nations from before you, but they shall be snares and traps unto you, and scourges in your sides, and thorns in your eyes, until you perish from off this good land which the Lord your God hath given you. Now, were there ever any Gentiles that got mixed with the Jews? Yes, there were some, but they chose these people like Ruth. She chose to be part of the Jewish family, where your God is my God, I will follow you, that type of a thing. We know that Rahab, the harlot, she chose as a Gentile to want to be part of this. So there could be people that would choose the God of Israel, and those are okay to be accepted in, but they were saying be careful, especially about marrying and going after the other people's gods. Now let's think about this just a little bit here. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse number 14 is a familiar verse. I'll put a couple of these verses on the screen. The Bible says, be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers, for what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? What communion hath light with darkness? It's a question that's asked. And there isn't clear fellowship as far as, especially for a believer to be yoked up with an unbeliever. Now, I know you work with unbelievers, I understand that. But as far as spiritual endeavors, or especially marriage endeavor, I can't emphasize this enough. It's been a hot topic that I've talked about since I've been the pastor here, and that is saved people ought to marry saved people. There's no question about it. And spiritual people ought to marry spiritual people. Even though you say, well, he says he's saved, and we're going to help him to get in church. Yeah, right. Well, don't plan on that. Why don't he prove himself first? Why don't let him prove himself? Let her prove herself, as opposed to just, oh, she's cute. I think that she might be interested in coming to church with me. Well, that's one of the dangerous things. In fact, if I would go back and say one of the causes for the flood, the worldwide flood, in Genesis 6, verse 2, the Bible says that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And so that, I know there are some pretty unsaved, people. I understand that. There ought to be 4 attractions for anybody when you get married. There ought to be a spiritual attraction, which means they ought to be saved. They ought to be on the same page spiritually with you. There ought to be an emotional attraction. You ought to like being with them. It's like you enjoy their presence. There ought to be a physical attraction. Don't marry them out of pity. Well, I guess they're a Baptist. I guess that's the one. No, there ought to be a physical attraction. There's no question. That is important. I'm not saying it's not. And then there ought to be a mental attraction, that you actually can converse and talk intelligently with each other and so forth. But what happened, I think, in the flood time as well as the warning here was that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, and they said, oh, let's go after those girls, and let's go find those girls. And again, I will say it until I'm blue in the face here. One of the things that really is a detriment to Christianity is Christians not have enough sense, and they go out and marry unsaved people and hope it works out. And then they raise their kids in a split home, and it's a terrible situation. And I know sometimes people get saved after you get married. One of them gets saved, and that's wonderful. You stay married, and you try and influence the other one to get saved, obviously. But it's important. Why? Because, again, when you live with somebody, that person can change your heart. Who's the best example of that in the Bible? Solomon. You remember this story? 1 Kings chapter 11, verse number 3, it says, the Bible says, Solomon had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 spares. And his wives turned away his heart. So obviously, Solomon was supposed to be the wisest man that ever lived, but that wasn't very smart, was it? I mean, how many mother-in-laws do you got to deal with there? You know what I'm saying? He just... But, this marriage thing, it is important. I think that God, made a man and a woman, and he wants there to be a wonderful, healthy relationship. Now marriage has come a long ways. Now we got weird stuff allowed by our society, which is very sad. 2013, the Supreme Court struck down the part of the Defense of Marriage Act, in the case, I won't get into all that, allowing same-sex marriages to be recognized by federal government. And by 2015, they ruled that same-sex marriage was a fundamental right, requiring all 50 states to recognize same-sex marriages. So that's a whole nother level beyond. But I will say even there's some Christians that don't even understand the difference there too, that there ought to be a man and a wife getting married, a woman and a man getting married. And Christians getting married. Does that make sense? I think most of us in this Wednesday night crowd would hopefully understand that. But don't let me be the lone voice on this. Encourage our teenagers to be careful about this. They get this boy or this girl that they get, at work or somewhere. I remember we had a really, really nice, pleasant girl that was in our Christian school, and she had a tough home. I understand that, but she had made a choice her senior year. She said, I'm gonna be in church. I'm gonna raise my family for God, and all this is gonna be what I'm gonna do. Well, she got a job at a certain place. It took her away from Sundays. It actually took her away from Sunday, and so she wasn't in church as much as she thought she was gonna be. There was a guy there that started giving her attention. Well, they ended up having a kid together. They're not married. They ended up having a second kid. She's still not married. She's raising as a single mom, a couple kids. I mean, that's not a fun life. And, I just hate that for a girl that had such potential to bring glory to God with her life, and yet she's now not doing all that she could for the Lord. And I'm not saying that God's done with her. I'm just simply saying she made some bad choices and probably made life a lot more difficult. And so be careful. To be single is better to be married than to be married to the wrong person. Better to be single than to be married to the wrong person. And even if they're a Christian, boy, you better be careful. Go through some serious marriage counseling. Go through some serious, what do your family members say? What do other friends say? What do the church family say? Who's excited about it? One of the things we enjoyed about Nathan and Bethany's is it felt like the families were happy about it. Our church family was happy about it. And, it just seemed to be God that brought these two together. And I'm so thankful for that. And then there are other times you go to a wedding, it's like, oh, I hope it works. I sure hope it works. And then many times it doesn't. Let me just remind you, marriage is hard enough with even good two Christian people. Marriage is not easy. Two individuals with strong wills trying to live together. It can happen if we do things God's way, but it's still not easy. And so be careful as we think about marriage. And that was one of the things that he was warning them about. He said, don't let your guys go after the girls of the town. Don't let your girls go after the guys of the town. Otherwise, it's going to get all messed up. Your whole thing's going to get messed up. You're going to be unequally yoked. Verse number 14, the Bible says, and behold, this I say, I'm going the way of all the earth. That means he was going to die. You know in your hearts and all your souls that not one thing hath failed of all the good things which the Lord your God spake concerning you, and all are come to pass unto you, and not one thing faileth thereof. Boy, that's pretty powerful that God did for them what he said he was going to do. Verse 15, therefore it shall come to pass that as all good things are come upon you, which the Lord your God promised you, so shall the Lord bring upon you all evil things until he hath destroyed you from off the good land which the Lord your God hath given you, when ye have transgressed the covenant of the Lord your God, which he commanded you, and have gone and served other gods and bowed yourself unto them, to them, and then shall the anger of the Lord be kindled against you, and ye shall perish quickly from off the good land which he hath given unto you. Just as a timeline, I enjoy trying to get the Bible in a timeline mindset. So Joshua went into the promised land around the 1400s, all right? 1400s BC, or let's just kind of put it that way. So 1400s BC, they conquered that land over that process of a few decades there. And so, it's creeping up a little bit closer to 1400. But so what happened? Do you remember what happened? Of course, they had the land of Israel for a while. They had David. Well, let's start with Saul. Saul was the first king, right? You remember this story? Saul was the first king of Israel. Remember this story? They wanted a king. By the way, I wish I could get into Judges. I don't think I'm going to get into Judges because I'm having knee replacement. I hate this, but my second knee has just gone bad, and I have to get that surgery done on the 24th. So I have got one more Wednesday night to do this, and then they'll do something else, and then we'll see whenever I'll see if I come back. Let's just see if I want to come back or not. I'm not sure, Anyway, you keep sending food, I might just stay where I'm at. I'm not sure. But what I'm trying to say is that it's interesting to get the big picture of Israel. So he said to them, if you follow the commandments of the Lord, you're going to be fine. If you don't, you're going to get destroyed, and God's going to have to, punish you. And when we think about it, through the book of Judges, we see a 40-year cycle. Do you remember this? And I will get into that someday. We'll go through the book of Judges. But in the book of Judges, they had judges because Joshua's going to die. So who's going to kind of be in charge? Well, they had what they called judges. And what would happen is many times they just do their thing, and then they get in trouble, and then they cry out to God, God, send us a deliverer, so God would send them a judge. And there were some unique judges. When we look at these judges someday, it was like a variety pack. I'm telling you right now, variety pack of people that God sent to be their judges. But God used certain people. You got from Samson, he's that, long-haired girl guy, that guy. You got Ehud, the left-handed dude. You got Gideon, who's afraid, hiding in the wine press, threshing his wheat. You got such a variety of personalities there. But what happens is they had the judges. It was about a 40-year cycle. they would do right, and then they deteriorate, and they go down, and then they get in trouble. And many times, God would use a foreign country to come in and cause them some problems, almost like a 9/11 situation. We'll spook them a little bit. We'll threaten them a little bit. We'll just hurt a few of their things. And then often they'd cry out to God, and God would send a deliverer, and he would deliver them, just like Gideon delivered them from the hand of the Midianites that were coming after them. And so God would send a deliverer. Well, then when you get to the end of the book of Judges, what happens is Samuel is the great last judge. Really, he is. He's an amazing judge. And he was right in tune with God from a child. And he had a real heart, compassion for the things of God. And things went really well in Samuel's day. When he was old, they said, we don't want another judge. And we don't want your kids. We don't want your sons ruling over us. And so make us a king like all the rest of the nations. And so God said, okay, they're not rejected you, Samuel, they rejected me. Basically, they want a king. They want to be like everybody else. The dumbest reason to do anything is to be like everybody else, right? So they did become like everybody else, and God allowed Saul to be the first king. How's that going for you? And he warned them, he said, you get a king, he's going to tax you, and he's going to tax you. And certainly Saul did some of that. And it went well for a couple years, and then Saul got kind of crazy. He got jealous of David. He spent half his life chasing David around the countryside. Long story short, Saul ends up dying with his own son in a major battle. David had already been anointed to be the next king, so David is a man after God's own heart. He's doing okay, many times okay, till he starts doing some stupid things himself, all right, you know, and he's got a bunch of kids from different women, and that doesn't go so well. I'm just kind of giving you a big picture overview of things, what I'm trying to do here. So then you have, after him, Solomon becomes the next king, all right? Solomon, David's son, from Bathsheba. Not the first son, because the first son died, and so their next son that was born, Solomon, becomes the next king. I think it's interesting. The two sons right together there, back to back, are Nathan and Solomon. There are two sons that David had. Nathan was one and Solomon's another one. Although it's interesting, David named one of his sons after Nathan, probably Nathan the prophet that actually told him the what for about, you know, getting right with God and so forth. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is something. I'm trying to go somewhere with this, right? Okay, I'm trying to figure out where I want to go with this. So Solomon then, as he departs from being king, his son Rehoboam takes over, and we know Rehoboam is kind of a knucklehead. Most of the book of Proverbs is written by Solomon, and many of those several chapters at the beginning, especially, they start with this, my son, my son, my son. He's talking about, I think, humanly speaking, my son Rehoboam, you're a knucklehead. Listen to me, pay attention. I want to help you to be a better king, because he knew he was going to go off the scene. Well, so Rehoboam becomes a fool and overtaxes, and God allowed Jeroboam, who wasn't even part of the family, to come back and take over, and he took 10 of the 12 tribes, and 10 tribes went north, and 2 were considered southern. The 10 northern ones were called Israel, the 2 southern ones are called Judah, and basically they never had a good king up north. Remember I said Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which made Israel to sin? He's the guy that took them up north. And he said, let's set up some false teacher worship up here so that you won't go back to that church back there in Jerusalem. Otherwise, your heart's going to be turned back to God. And so the nation went downhill. God was super patient, super patient, super patient. What year did the northern kingdom fall? Anybody got the year? So if we're talking about 1400 or so when Joshua's day, what year did the northern kingdom fall to the Assyrian army? Sennacherib was, in charge of the Assyrians. He came over to try and conquer. God allowed that. What year approximately? Somebody got a ballpark? 700. It was actually 722 BC. And it's interesting because Hezekiah was the king of the southern tribes at that time. And the northern tribes, they had issues. Anyway, but so Sennacherib wanted to come and conquer the southern tribes as well. But what happened is that Hezekiah got Isaiah and said, we got to pray. And they prayed, and God delivered them. And in fact, 150 people woke up dead the next day because God fought for them. It was kind of fun there. And then Sennacherib went home, and his other sons killed him there in his old false worship place. Anyway, I'm just trying to get somewhere with this, but So then it was a little while before the southern kingdom fell. What year did they fall? Does anybody know? 586. All right, 586. And what were you going to say, Daniel or Andrew? 586. Yeah, 586. But something else happened interesting a few years before. What was that, Andrew? Who was taken captive? Well, first it was Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. See, I go back to the whole idea, and I know sometimes I get feedback to say, you're getting too into the weeds of Bible study. But I want you to, especially on a Wednesday night crowd, I want you to know big history, because then you'll have bigger pieces of the puzzle to put together, and the bigger pieces you get together, all of a sudden it starts making sense. And I don't have a graphic. I didn't plan on doing this tonight, so I would have had a graphic to show you the timelines of how this all worked out. But he predicted it right here in chapter 23. He said, when you've transgressed the covenant of your Lord your God, which he commanded you, and have gone and served other gods, bowed yourself to them, then shall the anger of the Lord be kindled against you, and ye shall perish quickly from off the good land which he hath given unto you. So the northern kingdom fell in 722, never to occupy that land again. The southern kingdom, which is called Judah, just 2 tribes left there, were conquered in 722. They said, you're going to be taken for 70 years, and then you're going to be able to come back. But you got to go, if you're reading the Bible program from the church program, we're in the book of Jeremiah right now. Anybody doing that with me? All right, so several of you are doing book of Jeremiah. So Jeremiah is telling them, go quietly. Just don't fight it. Just go. If you fight it, you're going to die. If you get Egypt to try and fight for you, that's not going to go very well for any of you. Just submit and go. Go captive. And go there and marry and build houses and plant vineyards and all that stuff. And then 70 years later, you're going to come back. And that's when we get into the story of Daniel. So then Daniel, he's looking at the clock. It's like it's almost 70 years, isn't it? It's just, I read Jeremiah. He just said, Jeremiah said 70 years. Man, it's been 70 years. What's going to happen next? And that's when we see the image and all that stuff. Does this make sense? Comments or questions about the history that we've talked about here? Anybody? Thoughts, comments, questions? Do you have a pretty good handle on it, or what's confusing about this? You don't want a quiz tonight? Are you ready for a quiz? I feel it's important. Old Testament, people ignore it. They say, oh, that doesn't pertain to me. Oh, it certainly does, because it sees the heart of God and how God deals with his people. And there are patterns that we see over and over and over again. You know, God was pretty gracious from 1400 in Joshua's day to 700. He gave him 700 years to try and get right. The northern kingdom never had a good king, never had really much worship. They had some preachers like, they had some prophets like, what's their name start with an E? Elijah, Elisha. They were up north up there. So they had some preachers, but the kings were never right, and the people of the land as a whole did not really please God. So anyway, well, I guess our time is up. We should probably stop. Any comments at all? I feel like I'm just up here, maybe just rambling. Is that what I'm doing? Just rambling? Is this helping at all? Does anybody like it or hate it? Do you like it or hate it? Like it or hate it? Like it or hate it? Thumbs up or thumbs down or this way? I don't know, So, all right, I got a couple thumbs up. That's good. Appreciate it. All right. Well, again, you get more pieces of the puzzle put together, and all of a sudden it starts making more sense. And then when you see things in the book of Hebrews, for example, it's like, oh, that's what he's talking about, because I know this story. I know these people. I know when this happened. I know the history behind it. And, we want to grow because, again, we want to see the heartbeat of God. And all Scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable. And so there is profit, as much as sometimes we don't like reading the genealogies. We read genealogies and it's like, oh, this is such, but there's a reason for all that. It does all come together, all make sense at some point. So anyway, let's have a word of prayer and let you go tonight. Father, again, thank you for your word, and thank you that you always give warnings. You give warnings about your people, and you said that, if we humble ourselves and turn from our wicked ways and seek your face, that you'd heal and you'd bless us. And we would take that as even America. We believe that you could do that for us. And we do ask that we as your people would humble ourselves before you and seek your face and turn from our wicked ways. And we do ask that you'd heal our land as well. And even many times you used a remnant. And we see that, sometimes just a little tiny remnant. And you actually preserved a nation because of a few. And may there be a few that will stand for righteousness and decency. And we commit this election coming up. Of course, we know in our minds it's concerning about what happens. And we know there are no perfect people running. But I pray that you'd give us the people that would help us to be able to have liberty and freedom to be able to continue to proclaim your word and be able to accomplish what you'd want to have us accomplish in our day. And so, again, help us to personally follow your will and your ways. And I know that you want to bless. And I know that many times you're so good to us. Your grace is so obvious that you give us so much more than we deserve. Your mercy is amazing, and we're so thankful for your mercy for us. But help us to be in tune with you, have a heart to really follow and obey you, and to be able to be an influence. And really, as we think about our theme this year, make a difference. And so I pray that you'd help us to make a difference in our community and our world. Thank you now in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, thank you for being part of this time. Look forward to Sunday, and we'll talk one more time about Daniel. See there again, Daniel fits together with all this because that's where Daniel's at with the various kings there as well. So, all right, appreciate you coming. Have a good night. Enjoy. Go get the kids, rescue the kids, right? Should we take a vote on the carpet? Yeah, that's why we didn't take a vote before. No, really, we had a lot of opinions. We had a lot of ideas. A lot of people looked at it, and it's always hard to know with the pieces that we have what's going to look good, but I think it'll look good when it's all done.